Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. With host and founder, Richard Case, and co-host and retreat leader, Kathy Ricconi. Today is our special guest day, where we will hear from a friend in the ministry who will share their insight and stories on truth in this chaotic world. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Guest Thursday. We're very excited to have our friend Kurt. Kathy, maybe you'd like to make an introduction, and then we'll get involved with hearing your story, Kurt. We're glad you're here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Kurt. Kurt is definitely a very special person. You guys are going to have a lot of fun hearing Kurt's story today, seriously. He is one of my husband's dearest friends, part of the C12 group that he is in. And I remember when Dan first came home after Kurt had visited for the first time, he's like, boy, did I meet a character today. And he absolutely adored you from moment one. So I'm excited for other people to get to know you, just to get to know your heart. Probably one of the most authentic people that I think Dan runs with, and it's a privilege for him to call you friend, I know. And in that, I know everyone's going to be just excited and honored to hear your story.
Yeah, that's great. And Kurt, you said in Massachusetts?
Yep, I'm in Massachusetts, just north of Boston.
How long have you been there? How long have you lived in Massachusetts?
All my life, except for when I was in the military.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we'll look forward to hearing this story. Well, first, we'd like to hear. Tell us, how did you come to know Christ in your life?
Actually, through AA. It was through AA that I found Christ. That's really pretty much it. I grew up Episcopalian. I did go to Sunday school. Never had a relationship with God. I just thought it was something that I had to get dressed up to and get dragged to. My father was really active in the Episcopal Church. My mom was actually the person that got my father to church, and she never went. Yeah, I mean, just a fundamental basics. I thought the story of Noah's Ark was kind of a cutesy fairy tale, but it was really through the process after being in the military, going through that led me to Christ.
Okay. So when did you enter the military? How old were you then?
As soon as I got out of high school.
Okay.
Wow. What branch?
I was in the Army. So I graduated high school. I went on Outward Bound. And then as soon as I got home from Outward Bound, I left for a basic training.
How long were you in the military?
I was 3 years active, and then I did 5 in the reserves.
Okay. So when you got out, you came back, and what did you do then?
So I went to college for a year, which was awful. I did well, but it just wasn't for me. Army buddy of mine from Ohio came and asked me to take him to the North Bennett Street School in Boston. The North Bennett Street School is the oldest industrial arts school in the country. They teach all like lost arts. They teach carpentry, preservation carpentry, violin making, cabinet and furniture making, just all these lost arts. And I ended up going and he didn't. And that's kind of what started it. So the government put me through that with my GI Bill and Army College Fund, and the rest is history.
And then did you use that then? What kind of work did you get led to?
So I actually started framing houses right away and just building homes. I was just another bozo on the bus on the way to the miracle. I was very fortunate that we ended up in a development in Peabody, Mass, and we were just building one house after the other, after the other, after the other. Just a tremendous amount of experience, and that was it. And then we were off and running. So, yeah, and then after that, I started working in Boston on some of the brownstones in Boston, which is
cool.
Really where I like to work. I love working in town. I love working in Boston proper. And then I started my own company. There was a couple of companies, but I started my own, I think, in 2006.
Where along that journey did coming to Christ fit in? Where in your timeline of all of this?
So it really kind of starts at AA. So I was a professional drinker, really good at it. I was not a brown bag kind of guy. I was not a in the gutter kind of guy. It was always some type of ego infused macho insanity, which is nothing but insecurity. So as we know now in hindsight, I was 7 years sober and just miserable. I mean, white knuckling and gritting my teeth through it. I was ready to end it. I went to an AA meeting in Salisbury, Mass, and there were three older guys over in the corner, and they were just calm. They were just peaceful. They were like the three wise men over in the corner. And I was like, they got something. What they had was God. And it kind of started from there. I tried to go back to the Episcopal Church because that's what I knew. And that was like complete snore fest. It just wasn't for me. And then there was actually an ad in our local newspaper for a church in Georgetown, Mass. So I called and I spoke to the pastor right away. And the pastor was like, I want to come to your house. And I was like, what? And my wife at the time, my first wife, was in the kitchen, and I covered the receiver on the phone. I'm like, he wants to come to the house? What's up with that? So he came, and that kind of started the journey. It was some time after that before I actually gave my life to Christ, because I was very skeptical and like everybody else. And, I wanted to poke holes in it and disarm it and figure it out. But eventually I gave my life to Christ, and I wish I could say things got easier, but they didn't. It was tough. The battle was like ensuing right away. As soon as we got baptized, it was like, oh my gosh, all hell broke loose.
What were you? Had you already started your company by then, or was this prior to that? Okay, so you started your company and you're doing it, and you've gone through, came to know Christ, and then tell us about some of the. You said it was not super easy. What happened?
No. It was brutal. So my first marriage, I have 2 stepchildren, which is actually my company name. My company name is C2MG, which is Corey, Chelsea, Mac, and Gretchen. That's my kids' names. And Mac and Gretchen were not born yet. And we got baptized as a family. Just like, it was insane what went on. I say all the time, I swear that when that happened, the devil himself turned around and said, this is a problem. Because he got to work. He started on my oldest son, Corey. And it was just chaos. It was chaos for years. Just chaos. It just went on. It went on and on and on and on and on. So he got to work on my oldest son, and then he got to work on my wife, and then it went to my daughter, and it was just a major battle of the most insane reality you could ever imagine. It was nuts. Anything from law enforcement to like it was tough. It was a tough go, but
in the midst of that,
problems produce perseverance, right? So
in the midst of that, how did you see God showing up? What was he doing?
God showed up
really refine you guys?
Everywhere. We were definitely involved with the church, and we went to Camp Berea as a family, which was the most unbelievable, amazing thing as a family. And it's interesting. My oldest daughter, Chelsea, had been invited to Camp Berea, and this is before we were saved, by a friend who I'm still friends with today. And we dropped her off at camp. And again, we weren't saved at the time, and they had all these signs up that said like "Fear the Lord" and like all this stuff, and you couldn't speak to them for like. They didn't want you to call them for a week. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to have communication, which I get now, but at the time I was just like, what are we dropping her off at? And my wife was upside down about not talking to her, and it was just nuts. But it was really Chelsea was the catalyst for that, because Chelsea gave her life to Christ up at Camp Berea many years ago, and
That's so
she was
cool.
kind of the catalyst to move it in that direction. But Camp Berea was amazing.
That's beautiful. That's Camp Berea, Rich, is a camp up here in New Hampshire that a lot of youth groups will go to. They have winter retreats and stuff too, and family camps, but definitely a place that a lot of people, I have heard stories of starting their journey with God there.
Yeah. So as you were, beginning to, walk with God, take us through your journey. How did that progress with you in terms of your understanding and your relationship with Christ as you now went forward? So you started your business in 2006. When you got baptized, what year was that?
I want to say 2002, maybe. Okay. Maybe 2002.
Okay.
It was before my son Mac was born. He's 21. So
Okay.
2003-ish, maybe.
Okay. And then
I would say that.
how walk us through your your
We
work.
were super involved with a church in Georgetown, Mass, and that really kind of started it. Good church. Actually, the vice president of my company right now, I met there.
That's cool.
And one of my lead carpenters, one of my site supervisors, I also met there, who's still working for me to this day. So we just started to get involved, and we it was a smaller church. We kind of formed like a men's group, which was really, it was just awesome. It was myself, Jimmy, who's the vice president of my company, and actually this guy who's a foreman for us, a site supervisor. We asked the pastor if we could start a men's group because they didn't, and we did. And it was really just a place that we wanted to sit around the campfire and smoke cigars and be with other Christian men. And that's really kind of what it started out to. And it's fun. It's funny how things work out. We started it, and being new in Christ, there's all that like let's get after it, which was amazing. And we did some amazing things. And we had this woman's appreciation night that was like a high school prom. It was like, all the guys made dinner for the wives, and it was just an amazing night. But, the funny thing is that sometimes the powers that be get involved and they want to turn it into something that it's not. And it was very discouraging. People's noses were getting to be out of joint because, these new guys in Christ are standing this thing up, and they didn't. And so it's just very unfortunate. I wish we could bottle that new energy and just let it run. Just let it run. There should be a place where guys can just run. Mustangs need to run, and the Woodline shows itself eventually. And it's just really good. And I am a firm believer in the strength of men's ministries and the strength of other men. And to me, in this life, it's everything. So, I definitely have a heart there. Plus, I like to smoke cigars. That helps. So, I just think, to me, of all the things that go on, and obviously, your wife and your marriage and all those kind of things, I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But I truly believe in this world, the strength of other men, the right men, full men, is the most mission critical to get to the end game as can possibly be.
Are you involved now in a group like that?
So I do a lot of men's work individually with people. I do a ton of that with people. I'm always working with somebody. I'm not necessarily involved in a men's ministry. I'm not involved with our church men's ministry. They meet once a month. They have dinner on Sunday, and so not really. I do volunteer at my church. I work in the kitchen with my family. I am the dishwasher, which is basically the quarterback, so I can sit back and rag on everybody while everybody's cooking. I just do a lot of men's work. I'm always involved. And a lot of addiction issues. There's a lot of addiction issues in my company. We're definitely more of a hospital. I believe in the second chance. So there's every kind of addiction in my company that you could possibly imagine. Just as much as there's every kind of addiction everywhere else in the world. Mm-hmm. But, this is definitely a good place for somebody who needs a second start. So,
yeah. What did you learn about? We'll pursue some of this further even. But what did you learn about second chance, and why is that the heart of God?
That's a great question. Well, I got a second chance. I mean, first and foremost, and it's tough because I grew up in a great family. My mother and father were amazing people, and I was actually up at his mansion last Friday. Mm-hmm. And it's tough. Like, sometimes when you come from a good family, you don't think that you fit there or you fit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's almost like it's kind of a curse. It's like you don't have all this drama and dysfunction that fits in with the mold or whatever. And I'm not saying that it was perfect at my house, but I knew my mother was mad at my father when she made him fish sticks. You know what I mean? It just wasn't.
That's awesome.
It just wasn't like it wasn't chaotic. It wasn't screaming and yelling. It wasn't any of that. And really, it was an amazing. It was an amazing childhood. I'm blessed for the parents that I had. So sometimes when you have that, and I am an alcoholic, it's tough to see. Well, that can't be me. I wasn't born like that or I wasn't raised like that. It happens to everybody and anybody. And I'm fortunate enough that I work for some of the most affluent people in this country, and they have it just as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not immune to anybody. It's just some people are better at hiding it than others. That's the reality. And I say a lot of times to the guys that I'm working with, I can go knock on anybody's door, anyone. And if I dig deep enough, I'm going to find it. It'll be there. Nobody escapes it. Whether it's immediate family, secondary family, friends, close coworkers, it's everywhere. And there's just a great need, which is why I think the importance of how God says iron sharpens iron makes the most sense.
And what is what do you think is why second chance is such an important part of the Christian message, the Christian walk, and the fact that Christ always invites us to return to Him and not let that first failure dominate your life?
I think things need to be broken before they can be seen or visually seen or even understood. So I think that brokenness helps. I was speaking to my daughter the other day who's, going through some stuff, and it's like without the brokenness, you're never going to learn or you're never going to be able to appreciate it. It's the same thing as God's gift, right? If He just gave it to you free, it would have no value. It would have zero value. Nobody would have any value to it, but, and He's an absolute gentleman. He knocks at the door, but he won't come in unless you let him in. And you have to be at a point where you can do that. And I think it's easier to let God in when you're broken. That's kind of my own thing, I think. But I just think it's much easier that way. And it makes a ton of sense. And when you get people I was working with a counsel one time about somebody, and I was at a loss how to help this person, spending money trying to get them right sided, and I asked this person, I'm like, I have no idea what to do here, man. He's like, honestly, he says, if you really want to know what to do, he says, you pray. He says, and you pray that they come to the end of themselves, and it's bloody and messy and nasty as it possibly can be, because the sooner they come to their bottom, the sooner they're going to get better. And that is so true, which is why the whole thing with parents working through kids in addiction, it can be such a huge problem that they don't see. There was a particular guy that I was working with, and this particular guy had a really bad gambling thing, and his mom was involved with a mother's love, and I got him into a program, and the next day she was calling me, and she's like, well, if you're gonna see him, can you bring his pillow? And I'm just like, I'm like, you can't stop a mother's love, and that actually gets in the way. And when I was up at his mansion, I was talking about that too, and it's almost like parents need to be removed and let the damage be done, but it's just so hard to watch people go through that. It just, the enabling piece of any of that kind of stuff just really strips the addict or the person suffering of the ability to deal with life on life terms, which gets them to the bottom of their path, which gets them to God.
It's interesting as you share that, I am reminded of an illustration that my son Joshua, actually, this was when he was probably 16 years old, was leading a chapel at PCA where he went to school. And he shared this illustration with me, and it has stayed with me forevermore, talking about how a shepherd tends his sheep, and just this picture of how God does things too. And a shepherd actually will allow a sheep that it continues to wander to go all the way to a cliff sometimes and get backed up against a wall and that sort of thing, and then will come in and literally break the sheep's leg and pick the sheep up, put him around his neck, and then for the next several weeks as he heals, continue to salve, put the salve, to wrap the bandage, to do whatever. And when that sheep is healed, they put him back down, and is usually one of the strongest leaders in the sheep, because he has been in proximity to the shepherd and hearing his voice so closely and walking with him and growing in his trust, allowing him to heal him, that then when he comes out, he's stronger and he's the one leading the rest of the sheep. And I think that's a beautiful picture often of how God uses brokenness and will take us in our brokenness, and then just when we're ready to cooperate with that, right? Allowing him to become the healer and growing our faith and really healing healing all of those wounds. And then we come out really knowing him and being able to offer that healing to others, which is beautiful.
It's really amazing. And I forget the disciple with the thorn in his side. I'm sorry, but that I say in meetings, I say when people I talk to, my alcoholism is my greatest gift. There's no doubt. And I know that it keeps me in faith. It makes me think the way I do. It makes me think about a 32nd of an inch when I'm cutting something, or like it is a gift. And the tough thing with alcoholism or any of those kind of things is that there's not a lot of volume control. It's either all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
In every way. There's no middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Either I'm dressed up in a suit or I'm wearing torn, cut off jeans, or you know what I mean? Like there's no middle ground. And again, that's where the iron sharpening iron and the strength of other men come into play.
Mm-hmm.
That really comes into play there, and it just, I don't know, just super, 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 super helpful.
We're going to, pick this up. You talk about iron sharpening iron, strengthening. We're going to come back for our next week with you and talk about how are you strengthened, abiding? How do you walk with God? And then how do you give that away as you invite? And you said it, a couple things as one. And one of the truths of all of us, if we fully lived it out, and you obviously live it out, because you were given a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
Legit.
You have no judgment toward anybody. It's not like, what's wrong with you? It's like, I know the issue. Would you like to? Because I'm willing to give you a second chance, and God will give you a second chance. So we want to talk more about that, because I think what you're learning and expressing is so critical to just our heart and our ability to invite people who need second chances at the various steps. So, Kurt, thank you so much for sharing your story openly, and we'll look forward to having you back next week and continuing more of the understanding of your beautiful life and the freedom that you now live that you offer other people.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Kurt. Looking forward to hearing more next week. And even I know how C12 has played into that iron sharpens iron for you as well.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, if you have questions about today's podcast, be sure to send them in to us at questions@abideministries.com. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yep, see you then.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.